Disclaimer: No Self-Hate is a mental health awareness platform, not a licensed therapy provider or certified psychological organization. All content is for educational and informational purposes only and should not be considered medical advice or a substitute for professional mental health care. If you are in crisis or need immediate support, please contact a licensed mental health provider or call, text 988 for the Crisis Lifeline, US only. Some topics may include sensitive mental health themes. Viewer discretion is advised. This channel may include brief use of copyrighted material under Fair Use, U.S. Copyright Law, Section 107, for commentary, education, and discussion.
Hello and welcome to No Self-Hate, Season 1, Episode 5, 3 of 5, What is Right? I am your host, Kevin, and I will be your guide for today's information. So, you know what we have to do? Got to get in mode. So, I want you to relax. I want you to breathe. I want you to be accountable. I want you to put your defenses down. And I want you to open your mind to the opportunity for growth. All right? I want you to think about the goals that you've set for this week and last week and different things like that. I hope you have been successful. I hope you have been winning the battle with your trauma, your unresolved trauma, with your anger, with your self-hatred, with your forgiveness IQ. I hope you are growing as we go through these different episodes. Today we're going to focus on right, what it means to be right. If someone may not know that information, we are going to go through and again calibrate our compasses and make sure we're all heading in the same direction, or that we have the opportunity to head in the same direction. Okay? All right, so what is right? It's like the war between ego and truth. What if being right isn't the same as doing right? In this episode, we dive deep into one of the most uncomfortable truths about being human. We all think we're right. We do not like the feeling of being wrong, even when it comes down to like our sports figures and different aspects of society where we have subjective perspectives or subjective positions, but we consider these positions to be the top, to be the absolute, to be the most correct in pursuit of that perfection, that perfectionism, where we just have to be right. So why does feeling right feel so good, even when it's built on fear, pride, and pain? Why does it feel so good to be right? Think about the last argument or debate that you had. Think about how hard you were fighting to be right. Think about how hard the other person was fighting to be right. Now, we're both operating in some level of ignorance as we don't have all of the information in the world. It kind of comes down to a battle of who knows the most information or who has the most factual information. So in today's episode, we'll explore what it can mean to be right, what it can mean to be right. Again, this is very subjective. We're going to take this information and extract from it what we can and what we can use, and what we can't use or don't want to use, we're going to just sit that to the side. Okay? We are going to look into the hidden components that shape our sense of righteousness, why the psyche protects our ego over the truth, what universal morality looks like and why it matters. This is more than philosophy, it's emotional intelligence. And if you've ever found yourself defending something you knew wasn't right, this episode is for you. If you ever found yourself defending something that you knew wasn't right, this episode is for you. Okay? Real growth doesn't begin with being perfect or always being right. or forcing your views and your perspectives on others. Um, it begins with being honest with ourselves. It begins with us identifying the areas that we can enhance. Not saying these areas are horrible. Some of us are great in these areas. Some of us need a little work. But we're just going to go through it together and just, again, synchronize our clocks. All right, so let's dive into the definition of right. We often think of right as what's morally, ethically, or socially acceptable. Something that aligns with our conscience and our values. Something that aligns with our conscience and our value. The idea of rightness brings about feelings of justification, fairness, and goodness. It often results in peace, clarity, and a sense of purpose. However, here's a key point to remember. Right isn't universal. What feels right to one person might feel wrong to another. This can be influenced by factors like upbringing, past traumas, environment, or mental conditioning. As we move forward, keep in mind that understanding differing perceptions of right is crucial for empathy and growth. See, we must understand that our right is our subjective right most of the time. Okay? And others have their subjective right. So we have to learn to have space for multiple perspectives of right so that we have the empathy for the people that are around us, so that we have the space to grow and learn new things from each other. All right, so what are the components of being right? Understanding this concept requires us to peel back the layers and look beyond the surface. It's not just about the immediate sense of rightness. It's about the underlying elements that shape that perception. We'll be exploring how personal values, moral frameworks, and even societal influences play crucial roles in constructing our sense of right. These components are deeply intertwined, often driving our decisions and actions. As we go through these components, think about your own experiences. What are the factors that shape your sense of right? Where did you, what family member was present in your life that made sure that they taught you right versus wrong? Where did this begin for you to your earliest memory? And we need to know that because we'll trace back and we'll go and see and make sure that these things that we were taught right, if they are actually right today. We're going to do like an audit of the things that we were taught throughout our lives that were considered right. And again, we have universal morality, and basically we'll dive into that when we get to that point, but we'll have a way to calibrate and to see what right can be. All right, so by understanding these components, we gain insight into ourselves and others, fostering empathy and connection in our interactions. All right, so let's talk about the components of what we perceive as right, starting with personal values. These are the deeply held beliefs that shape our lives, influenced by our identity, experiences, culture, and even pain. Now, some common personal values include honesty, loyalty, freedom, justice, family, independence, and respect. Each of these can guide our actions and decisions in different ways. For instance, let's consider loyalty. You might find yourself defending a friend who did something wrong, not because it's the morally right thing to do, but because in that moment, loyalty feels more important to you. This example illustrates how personal values can sometimes override what is conventionally considered right. It's a reminder that our values are intricately tied to who we are and how we navigate the world. All right, so think about your own values. How do they influence your sense of right and wrong? Your personal values. Who taught you those personal values? Because you have to remember, if we're looking at mimetic desires, we have to understand that everything that we believe and want and understand had to be taught to us, or a portion of it had to be taught to us, right? For us to even believe it now. So I want you to think about your personal values. All right, so let's look into the concept of moral framework. This is essentially the ethical system we were taught as we grew up. It's our internal guide to understanding what is deemed good, bad, forbidden, or rewarded in our upbringing. All right, consider how different backgrounds shape our views. For instance, if you were raised in a religious household, you might feel guilty drinking alcohol, even if it's legally permissible. That's because your moral framework ingrained the belief that it's wrong. So you don't indulge in that type of thing. Similarly, cultural differences highlight this concept. Speaking openly to elders may be considered disrespectful in some cultures, while in others it's encouraged. These are different moral frameworks at play, yet each person feels right within their own context. Here's a key insight. When you harbor a strong sense of being morally right, take a moment to reflect. Ask yourself whether this is a belief you truly hold or one you've accepted without questioning. All right. How many of our beliefs have we accepted just because they were taught to us without questioning the actual morality of that belief? I can think of a few that when I was growing up that I would think would be the right thing to do, but as I reflect on it now, there was some opportunity for growth in that belief. I'm trying to give you an exact example. Okay. Growing up, I saw a lot of things that could make me believe a certain thing about a certain group of people. Let's say hypothetically. I saw some things that made me think, okay, well, this group of people, they are malicious, or this group of people they have issues with, self-hatred, or, they're undesirable. This group is, right? But as I grew up, and now that wasn't something that was taught to me in my home. That was something that I saw out in the world whenever I would go through, and the things that I would experience. And as I got older, I realized that there's only one group of people, humans. There's only one group. It's just us. We all have interchangeable parts. I can give any member of the group of humans a kidney if they needed one and they were my blood type. I had to understand that stereotypes can mold the way that you think about people, even sometimes experiences. But ultimately, you have to look at the logical side of things, right? And my main concerns shifted from the view that I initially had to, pro-human. I am a pro-human being. I love humans. Humans are wonderful. We all have different sides, and we all have areas of ignorance that we need to enhance. But I still love it. It's still the perfect chaos. It's the perfect storm, right? Okay, so remember, understanding our moral frameworks helps us navigate diverse perspectives and fosters empathy. Okay, moral frameworks. That's another component of being right. All right, so emotional justification. We all have moments when our emotions take the wheel. Sometimes they override our logic or morals, make us feel right simply because our actions satisfy a powerful emotion like anger, fear, pride, or love. Consider the example of a parent who uses harsh discipline under the guise of love, saying, "I'm doing this because I love you." Here, the emotional justification might be protection, but the behavior is undeniably abusive. Similarly, when you scream at a partner during a fight, it might feel justified because you were hurt first, but it still causes harm. So let's freeze there for a minute. When we get hurt or when we are angry, we justify or we support not being right as if it's right. We do things that we know aren't right. These things aren't the right things to do. We call each other names. We talk down to each other. We chop each other down with words. And we know in the back of our mind that we're saying these words because we want to hurt that other person. Now, you feel right, but is that the right thing to do? Because it feels good to vent anger in aggressive or explosive ways. Is it the right thing to allow that anger to harm someone else? All right. So that's the part where we have to look inward and we have to see if A, we are actually practicing this now, and in B, what are our options for changing this behavior? The behavior of you are wrong. You are wrong. You said something that you didn't have to say. You called that person a name. You hung up in that person's face, or you're retaliating on that person for some reason. You go back to our episode 2 or 3, I believe, what is anger? It breaks all of this down. But you're exercising that unconscious anger. But even in the back of your mind, you feel that it isn't right, but yet you're pushing forward with it. Why do we do that? Why do we want to hurt each other so bad when we are hurt? Right? I want you to think about that. And I want you to think if it's possible for us to conquer that, whatever that is. Is it possible for us to, in those moments of anger, pain, fear, be able to control ourselves so that even if someone is damaging us, we're not damaging other people because we have a better, well, I don't want to say better. We have a little more knowledge when it comes to understanding our anger, when it comes to understanding self than most people. As you follow along in this season and as you go through the different episodes, I want you to understand that you are gaining superpowers. The superpower is coming from self, from you freeing self from the constraints of ignorance. You're becoming stronger and stronger. All right. Let's go to the next one. All right. So the key insight here is that emotions can make harmful actions feel justified, even righteous. This is where emotional intelligence becomes crucial. It encourages us to pause and reflect. Am I acting from a place of pain or from a place of principle? Think about that next time you're in a tough, heated conversation and someone has said something or done something that has hurt you or caused you some discomfort. I want you to think about the words that you're saying. Are they coming from a place of pain, in retaliation or anger, or are they coming from a place of principle? Holding on to those morals, making sure that those morals are intact and can't be broken for any reason. All right. Understanding this can help us navigate our actions more thoughtfully and align them more closely with our true values. Cognitive biases. This is very important information. Cognitive biases. This is the third component of right. So our brains are fascinating. They're designed to protect our self-esteem and reduce stress, often using biases to make us feel secure. So our brain is sort of running on autopilot in certain areas when it comes to safety and protection. it protects you from feeling bad. It may protect you, to reduce stress. But our brains, that's our brain's job, to make us feel good, to enhance this experience, to ensure that we are using the proper perspectives to feel validation, to feel happiness, to feel success, right? So our cognitive biases are always going to want to see us in a good position and always want to see us feeling good. All right. So here's the kicker. These biases that we feel can skew our reasoning because the brain automatically protects us and automatically wants to see us feeling great. This can skew our ability to identify logic, right? I say something all of the time. It's just a theory. You can't be emotional. You can't be emotional and logical at the same time. That would be emotional-logical. And that's not a word. I just made that up. But my point is you can't be both at the same time. Can't be emotional and logical. Because if you're emotional, emotions are priority. If you're logical, logic is priority. Okay? So our brain will continue to take our emotions and try to make them seem logical to us because it wants us to feel good in that moment based off the patterns that we have taught it over time that, oh, when we do this, we feel good in this situation. All right. So I want you to consider these common biases. Confirmation bias. We have a tendency to only notice information that supports what we already believe. It's like wearing blinders to anything that challenges our views. Right? So that's confirmation bias. We only support what we already believe and what we're willing to believe. So in this situation, we have to, again, keep an open mind, realize that we don't have all of the information. And there may be a possibility what we believe deeply in the most deepest thought that we believe, most cherished thought, could be wrong. We just doesn't mean we are, but we have to leave the door open for that possibility. Okay. Next up is self-serving bias. We're quick to pat ourselves on the back for successes, but just as quick to point fingers when things go wrong. Isn't that convenient? I see that all the time. When I play basketball, I see when we're winning, everyone is happy, everyone is up and running, everyone is excited, you see smiles. But when, let's say, we lose a game or something, I've noticed that very few people prioritize accountability, right? So for me, in those situations when we lose games, I don't care if I had a perfect game. I try to look at opportunities and ways I could have done better or done more to help us win before I look outside of myself to say, hey, well, you had 3 turnovers or 4 turnovers, or you had this or you had that. Because that's just the type of person that I am. I look at accountability first. It's accountability in any situation for me. Looking at that in a healthy way, not in excessive self-criticism or anything like that, but looking at accountability. How could I have done this thing better? What could I have done different? All right. So that's self-serving bias. It serves you for you to take advantage. And again, we're going to have an episode about convenience and how we as humans leverage convenience to always be right. It's convenient that when we win, you pat yourself on the back, but when we lose, you look at someone else. That's awfully convenient for someone that may have low emotional intelligence. That's awfully convenient for someone that may have issues with accountability, right? So that's self-serving bias. Next up, we have moral licensing. After doing something good, we might feel entitled to bend the rules. Right? What's an example of this one? Okay, my kids. So they'll do something good like clean up or do some great work. And then they'll feel because they've made me happy doing the work or doing something for me that they can just now go have at it in the pantry, whatever they want. They don't care about inventory. They don't care about anything. And they'll just go get whatever they wanted. Then I'll ask them, say, hey, why didn't you just, notify me? Let me know that you were going to do this. Again, we're keeping inventory because we're trying to balance everything. And we keep track of these things. Why didn't you bring that information to me? And they may say, oh, I'm sorry, right? But in the back of their mind, in my opinion, in the back of their mind, they're like, hey, I just did this thing for you. You shouldn't be mad that I broke this rule. You shouldn't be mad. Look, I just made you happy, right? So that's moral licensing. They did something to make you happy, so that's a right thing. But because they had the license of making you happy, they now feel that they have the freedom to do as they please. All right? So, for instance, you might justify lying at work by thinking, I always work overtime, I deserve this. Or ignore someone's pain, rationalizing, they're always dramatic anyway. Right? That's moral licensing. That's you being right, no matter what. And how your brain is protecting you and defending you and putting you in that position that makes you feel good, that is euphoric, or that may make you feel confident in self-esteem. All right. These aren't rational thoughts. They're biased thoughts shielding our self-image. Remember, acknowledging these biases is the first step to overcoming them. It's about striving for self-awareness and challenging those ingrained patterns. I want you to think about that. Challenge those ingrained patterns. It's going to be difficult because you have developed habits. You have developed routines that you have been doing for years and you haven't been paying attention to them, but they have been happening in your mind whenever you think about things or whenever you get into different situations. I want you to try to identify those and start working on uprooting the ones that you don't agree with now, right? The ones that you could look at and see like, okay, all right, I could see my accountability in that way of thinking and how that way of thinking could lead to negativity or different things like that. All right. Next up, we have components of right, social conditioning. So, have you ever found yourself going along with something simply because everyone else is doing it? Yeah, I could think of a few times. Quite a few things, actually, for me. What about you? This slide dives into how social conditioning can distort our sense of right and wrong. The key point here is that sometimes our environment normalizes behaviors that aren't ethically sound. For instance, in some places, mocking others is dismissed as just joking. Yet it feels right because it's so widespread. Another example is cultural expectations like pressuring women to be silent or men to hide their emotions. These behaviors might feel right due to social norms, but they can be emotionally damaging for the people involved. The crucial insight here is that normalcy doesn't equate to morality. Just because something is normal or normalized doesn't mean that it is moral. All right. Let's challenge ourselves to question, if we were raised elsewhere, would our beliefs still hold? So, do you think anyone else outside of your immediate environment shares the exact values and morals that you do? And if you do find morals or values that are, again, considered more universal, um, why do you support the ones that you're kind of iffy about, right? These are some things to think about. Social conditioning. We are being conditioned socially by immoral things. Some neighborhoods, it may be common to walk around with unregistered guns. In other neighborhoods, it may be, you know, okay to go steal, or other cultures or other people, right? It may be okay to go panhandle. What is morally right to us is defined to us by our environment and by our experiences and our social conditioning if we're not paying attention. The veil of consciousness coming soon. Social conditioning. I want you to think about that. When you go to school, your friends, when you go to work, what can you identify the social conditioning in your environments? Whether that's work, school, the gym, whatever. I want you to start looking at that. Start looking at the way immoral things are being socially conditioned into your mind. All right, so intent. This is very important. Wow, this is so important. So let's dive into how intentions play into our sense of what's right. Often we may find ourselves doing something questionable, convinced it's justified because our intentions are good. All right. Intent. We talked about this a few episodes where intent should align with actions. What happens is our intent in our mind, it's like, okay, I want to do this thing for this reason, for this good reason. But traveling from from our mind to our mouth, something happens, or traveling from our mind to our body, something happens where the initial communication gets fumbled, and there can be outside variables that cause that to be that way, right? So for example, you may want to tell someone, hey, your shoes look really nice, right? They may say something in a rude way or anything like that. And something that started out with you trying to give a compliment, now the reply from the other person has triggered something in you. And now your whole intent of wanting to tell this person that these shoes that they have on are really nice has now turned into you telling this person, hey, well, screw you, man. Like it turned into something else because our intent doesn't always align with our actions. And we have to remember that. The more you can make your intent align with your actions, the better. The better the experience for people outside of you, and the better the experience for you. All right. So, consider when you tell a white lie to protect someone's feelings. It may feel compassionate, but it remains dishonest. Someone say, "Hey, do you think my hair looks bad?" You're like, "Nah, it looks great." Right? And again, it may feel compassionate, but it remains dishonest. Or imagine someone who steals to feed their children. The intent is survival, and we talked about this in our last episode. Yet it still conflicts with the law. In both scenarios, the intent provides a sense of moral cushioning, making the action feel right to us. Right? You saw what we just did there? You see how that intent, that's another way that intent can be off, right? Look at that. Morally, we were convinced that our intent to steal some food is for our survival. But we overlook the fact that, or we pacified the fact that it would be breaking the law. You see how intent works? You must align your intent with your actions in the law. We don't want you to go to jail. We don't want you to be harmed. So you want to make sure that your intent is aligned with, to the best of your ability, because again, it's not about perfectionism. This is not about overnight success. This is about slowly chipping away and working towards getting better. Every day we just give the effort. Every day we just put the work in, right? And so your intent is just something that starts out as an idea, and you want to root that in positivity. You want to root that in the greater good. Because in my experience, when I start out there, positive things happen around me. Okay? So just think about that. Intent. Make sure your intent is rooted in positivity, the greater good, and you don't break the law. We don't want you to go to jail. There are opportunities out here. I get it. Everyone has different circumstances. Some people have been marked and can't join the workforce. There are people that are struggling in the educational areas and different things like that. So we're all at different levels. So for me to be able to say, hey, we'll just go get a job, I don't know if that's being sensitive to the reality of what's actually going on out here for a lot of people, where they feel that they get in these positions that their intent is survival. So they are willing to break the law. They are willing to do things to survive, right? So that's a real thing. So here's the crucial takeaway. While intent is important, the impact of our actions hold greater weight. We should always ask ourselves, what effect does my action have beyond my intention? This reflection can guide us toward more ethically aligned decisions. Remember, understanding this balance between intent and impact is vital in our journey to making choices that are not just right for us, but right for others too. All right, so again, empathy, self-awareness, being aware of those around us, being aware of how our actions impact those around us. Okay, that's intent. All right, so conscience. Your conscience is that inner voice shaped by your values, empathy, and experiences, guiding your sense of morality. That voice in your head. What do you hear? Right? I believe a rapper, I forget his name, did an experiment where he told someone to close their eyes, and he said, in your mind, without saying it out your mouth, say hello. And that person closed their eyes and they said hello. And he asked them, did you hear yourself say hello? And they said yes. And he said, we didn't. Right? So we're talking about that voice in your head, that universe in your mind, that movie, that decision-making process, that is what we're talking about when we're thinking about your conscious. Okay? So consider this. Even when no one else knows about a lie you've told, your conscience might keep you awake at night. This is where guilt comes in. This is why I avoid guilt right here. Because of conscience. Because I have a conscience. Some people, I've heard that people say, oh, I don't have a conscience, or I'm unconscious, or I don't know. Not unconscious, but I don't know. I think genetically and biologically, it is embedded in all humans that they feel something when guilt is associated to it. They know when they're about to do something wrong. Yet, again, they convince themselves that it's okay. That's that self-serving bias, right? So So yeah, again, your conscience might keep you awake at night. When you lie, this is why you don't lie. You don't want to have that feeling on your heart. You all know that feeling when you lie. You know that feeling. That is a disgusting feeling, right? So that's its power. It operates beyond external validation. Or think about when you feel compelled, or excuse me, when you feel compelled to help someone in need. That's your conscience guiding you towards compassion, not just rules or societal norms. Your conscience is saying, okay, maybe I should help this person. The key insight here is that your conscience is a marker of emotional maturity. It gently reminds us you know better, you can choose better. All right? I want you to think about that. When you know better, having the strength to choose better. It's not always going to be easy. You may be emotionally compromised sometime. You may be going through some tough things. You may be going through some processing moments. And it's not always going to be easy to choose better. But if we can make a commitment to saying that once we know better, we will submit and do better, I believe that is an opportunity for all of us to grow. Again, I am your imperfect host. I am your hypocritical human host. I am your existing within some realm of ignorance host. I am not perfect. I am anti-perfectionism. I am just striving for excellence with my effort, with the things that I put into my mind. So I am just like you or anyone else. And I always want to make sure that that's clear, that I am learning from this information as well. This information is building me. I've learned so much right now that it's just going through my mind. Even as I'm delivering this episode, I'm thinking about this stuff, right? I'm thinking about this information. Okay? If we know better, we have to strive to choose to do better. We have to. We have to make that a law. Again, it's not going to happen overnight. We got to break some old routines and some old patterns that our mind has been used to going to for a very long time. But I'm going to work on that. I'm going to work on that this week, where when I know better, I'm just going to choose to do better. I am going to lock that moral in to do better. All right. So remember, your conscience doesn't shout, it whispers. But those whispers are valuable cues for making choices that truly align with your best self. All right. We're just trying to put our best self forward. All right. So that was pretty good. That was pretty good. So now that we've covered the components of being right, let's answer the question, the most important question. Why do we always think we're right? All right. So why do we always think that? The feeling of being right is deeply rooted in our psychology. It's not just about being stubborn or opinionated. It's more complex. Let's think about it. When we believe we're right, it often feels reassuring. It aligns with our sense of self and our understanding of the world around us. This perception is comforting, but it can also blind us to other perspectives. It's important to remember that our need to be right can sometimes overshadow the truth. Say that again. It is important to remember that our need to be right can sometimes overshadow the truth. This need is driven by our ego, our identity, and our desire to protect our sense of self-worth. So again, that's the mind. That's the desire to want to protect our ego. And we all know about ego. We all know about our identity. So we are doing this to feel good. We want to feel great all the time. No one really wants to feel bad purposefully. Now, there are some conditions or ways of thinking where people do enjoy feeling bad or feeling negative or existing in negativity or existing in chaos, right? There are times when people do feel that way. But most of the times you want to feel good. Okay. As we explore this topic further, let's remain open to understanding why we cling to being right and how recognizing this tendency can lead to personal growth and better decision making. I do it all the time now. I catch myself in conversations and it happens so fast. Before you know it, you will be in a conversation where you are trying your best to be right. Someone could say, "Oh, that restaurant closed about a year ago." You'd be like, "No, no, I thought I saw it 6 months ago." No, no, it was a year ago. No, 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 I'm pretty sure, man, because I pull out my phone. I'm pretty sure I looked at it and it was about 6 months ago. My friend. Oh, you're right. It was a year ago. It was a year ago. I was wrong. But I just exchanged 500 words with a human about me being wrong. And why did I even care enough to want to be right? Because it felt good. Because it feels good. It's self-validating. It shows me, "Hey, Kevin, you're right. You're smart. You're intelligent. You pay attention." And I take that in this self-validation. Okay? All right, so why we always think we're right. Ego protection. So, first, consider the role of your ego. Your ego is essentially your sense of self-worth. That's basically what it is. When confronted with being wrong, it can feel like a personal attack on your identity. I see this all the time. People do not like to feel wrong. A lot. Like some people will go as far as they can to not feel wrong. And I ask, what's so wrong with being imperfect? What's so wrong with being flawed in your knowledge or in your education? Even if you had the access to every piece of available knowledge known to man and then some, the unknown, you wouldn't be able to handle it and remember it anyway. So what's so wrong with being wrong knowing that you exist in a certain level of ignorance? Why did you have to win? Why couldn't that person have that? Why did it turn into an ego contest where you just had to have it and it was really nothing? I want you to think about that. The petty stuff that we fight for, the petty angles and the petty validations, and all of these things to protect our ego, to feel good. Again, we always think we're right because it feels good. All right? So, take the example of an executive who launches a failing project. Instead of admitting the mistake, they might deflect the blame onto external factors, like the market may not be ready, or this is their ego trying to shield them from feeling like a failure. So there's another one. No one wants to feel like a failure, even in the face of failure. So admitting a mistake can threaten your self-image, and that discomfort is something our psyche tries to avoid. The key takeaway here is that our need to protect our ego often leads us to cling to the idea that we're right. It's a defense mechanism to maintain our self-esteem and identity. All right, confirmation bias. All right. Imagine someone who firmly believes vaccines are harmful. They might search for stories that back up their belief while ignoring solid scientific evidence that shows vaccines are safe. This is a natural human tendency where our minds cherry pick information to reinforce what we already think, avoiding anything that makes us uncomfortable. You see how hard your mind is working to protect you, and we just have to align it and in a la carte, the way that we want it, the exact way that we want it. Right now, we haven't been paying attention to the way that it's been operating in the actual little processes that it's doing to operate, that it has gotten to a point that it is an autopilot. It assumes you haven't said anything, so these things are okay to continue to think this way or move this way. So that's what it's doing. It's protecting us. But we haven't audited the processes, and that's what we're doing now. We're going through and we're going to look at confirmation bias. All right. So now, to help you go get a deeper understanding, now let's consider why this happens. Why we have this natural human tendency where our mind cherry picks information to reinforce what we already think, avoiding anything that makes us feel uncomfortable. Wrong would make us feel uncomfortable. So why does this happen? Our minds are wired to maintain psychological stability. Okay? They're wired for you to feel good. Imagine if your brain didn't have that. You feel like crap. And there are maybe groups of people amongst us that have those issues where they just can't maintain that happiness or maintain that psychological stability. I've seen it as well. Imagine that if your brain wasn't able to do that for you. So it's fighting hard for you, but it's been programmed unconsciously. It's unconsciously programmed, or it's been involuntarily programmed by you over the years by not paying attention to these little processes. All right. So we subconsciously filter reality to avoid emotional discomfort, even if it means holding on to incorrect beliefs. This tendency is about protecting ourselves emotionally, which can be at odds with objective truth. In summary, confirmation bias is about seeking comfort in the familiar and avoiding the unsettling challenge of changing our minds. It's a fascinating aspect of human psychology that affects us all. All right, so let's explore why we think we're right and how it ties into our emotional well-being. Feeling right often gives us a sense of emotional stability, even when the logic behind it is flawed. The key point here is emotional safety. Imagine someone in a relationship that's clearly unhealthy. Deep down, they recognize that their partner is emotionally abusive, yet they convince themselves with thoughts like, my partner loves me, they're just stressed. Why do they do this? Because accepting the truth would mean facing a painful emotional confrontation and the uncertainty that comes with it. Their psyche opts for comfort over truth, maintaining emotional certainty even when logic says otherwise. Believing we're correct feels reassuring and safe. It provides us with emotional certainty, a comfort blanket, if you will, even when it does not align with reality. All right, so our emotions, again, that's another part of our brain just trying to make us feel good, just taking this human experience and making sure that it is protecting us based off our experiences and the things that it has recorded that makes us uncomfortable or unhappy. Okay. Next up, social validation. Have you ever noticed how being right in a group can make you feel valued and respected? This isn't just about feeling good, it's about social validation. When others agree with us, it often reinforces our sense of worth. All right. Consider a teenager who bullies a peer to impress friends. Although they know bullying is wrong, the validation they receive from friends makes it feel right. Those friends may validate with respect. They may validate by putting you in a position of leadership or putting that person. Now they all know that bullying is wrong, but they like the attention that they're getting. They like their social status or social position from whatever that they're doing that may be wrong, and it's still being supported though socially. So as we move up these social hierarchies, our friendships and different things like that, some people are willing to do anything to be to feel a sense of validation, to feel a sense of verification that these people like me, or these people support me, or these people have my back, right? A lot of people do that. Now, our psyche often prioritizes that immediate social validation over standing up for what's ethically correct. So, our psyche is going to prioritize social validation over standing up for what's ethically correct. The ethical thing here to do is someone is being bullied that may not be able to defend themselves or whatever. The ethical thing to do here is to not allow this thing to happen. But I could gain 300 followers if I do this thing. Look at the internet, look at YouTube, I want you all to look at YouTube, and I want you to see how extreme it has become. For some creators, what they're willing to do to get your attention, to get your likes, to get your subscriptions, to feel validated, to get that social validation. I want you to start paying attention to that. You will see people doing some extreme, unethical things, immoral things, just to get your eyes to watch them. And again, when you're programmed like that, when every time you open your YouTube app, you've been looking at chaos and all of this crazy stuff for so long that now you're getting something, you're interested in it now. So you're going to look at these different things, and you may see a creator doing something immoral or unethical, but you still watch it. You still give your time to it because you haven't checked that process that allows you to put filth into your mind. Or and again, I'm not any different. I watch YouTube, I watch whatever pops up sometimes, right? But still, it puts that into our mind that, oh, this is okay. And that person who did that immoral or unethical thing gains social validation. That's just one example. There are plenty, but that's just one. All right. When people agree with us, it feels like a powerful affirmation of our beliefs, even if it means ignoring the truth. Our minds crave social acceptance, sometimes at the expense of reality. Now, how often do we let the desire for praise and acceptance override our better judgment? I want you to think about that. Identity attachment. So our beliefs are not just thoughts we hold. They are parts of who we are. Challenging these beliefs can feel like challenging our very essence. This makes sense as to why we might react defensively when our beliefs are questioned. Consider someone raised in a family with strong religious convictions. Even when they encounter evidence that contradicts these teachings, they might defensively dismiss or even attack opposing views. For them, it's not just an intellectual debate, it's about protecting their identity. All right? The logic here is compelling. Our core beliefs shape our identity. When these are challenged, it feels like an attack on our self-concept, prompting defense reactions. It's natural, albeit complex, psychological response. As we move forward, let's think about how we can approach our beliefs with openness, understanding that it's a process to balance identity attachment with the desire to explore new perspectives. Okay, so using that religious example, when we're taught principles or things that we've learned from our upbringing that maybe our grandmother learned or our grandfather learned or our mother learned, and these things are dear to us. So the mere thought of them ever being wrong, knowing that these important people hang on to these things, could trigger us, could put us in a position of identity attachment where we're not able to identify the objective truth in the situation. All right. Right. We're getting through it. We're getting through it. So now we've gone through and we talked about why we always think we're right. We've identified the most common parts for that. Um, Now let's go into what is a universal moral right. Across cultures, languages, religions, even in places that have never spoken to each other, some things are just known to be right. I wonder why is that? I wonder how someone in a village in South America could have some of the same morals as someone in New York City in America, in the United States. What How did they get to that point? How did these two people in two different places of the world, two different educations, two different experiences or perspectives, how did they end up at the same universal moral right? Okay, so a universal moral right is a principle so deeply rooted in our shared humanity that almost every person everywhere recognizes it. So that's what a universal right, moral right is. You don't need to be taught it in school. You don't need to read it in a book. You feel it in your conscience. Things like helping someone in need, protecting innocent life, telling the truth, not stealing or harming others. Even if laws change, even if society justifies wrong, these truths stay the same. These truths stay the same because they're not just cultural, they're human. This is the human connection that we have, the universal moral right. Earlier, I said that I see people do a lot of stuff on the news in real time, on the internet, where they know that it's wrong. Somehow they've convinced themselves that their conscience doesn't exist, and that conscience, as you can see, ties us all in together. We are all tied into that together. It's almost like we share it when it comes to morals and what is right. Okay? And when we violate them, something inside us reacts. I remember when I was younger, I once stole something from my cousin. This was years ago. He was real cool. He always had the latest stuff, like the nicest clothes and the nicest cars and stuff like that. So I kind of looked up to him. So I remember one day I think I took a shirt from him. It was a really nice shirt. Again, I was in school. I just wanted to look good and feel good. But unfortunately, it didn't make me feel good because I knew the shirt that I had on that everyone was complimenting me on was a shirt that I took from someone and that they weren't aware that I had it. So I wasn't even able to fully enjoy the moment of having that cool shirt on that was getting me social validation, that was having people, compliment me and making me feel good about myself. I wasn't even able to enjoy it, right? Because I something inside of me was like, this is wrong, man. You shouldn't even have this experience. This shouldn't even be happening right now. Morally, if you had followed your morals in what your conscience was telling you not to take that shirt, you wouldn't even be feeling this, right? So that's when we go against the universal moral rights. It's safe to say that stealing is one of those rights, but we'll see. All right, so that quiet voice, that discomfort, that's your conscience reminding you, this isn't right. Stop ignoring the voice telling you that this isn't right. Stop it. I see it. I mean, from celebrities, all statuses of society, all groups in society, all humans. When you know something isn't right, don't do it. Not just for the outside effects, not for the external effects that it has on others, but what it does to you. I couldn't imagine walking around carrying that guilt of knowing I did something wrong to somebody. Um, I once knew a guy and he was telling me, when he was going through life, he ended up, running into trouble. He ended up going to prison. And for whatever crime he did, he said that every day of his life he thought about it while he was in jail. It wasn't one day that didn't go by that he didn't think about that wrong that he did. And he said he knew it wasn't right when he did it. So now he's walking through life till this day, carrying that on him, right? Because he knew it wasn't right and it costed him. And after he did something that was wrong, he had to go through life carrying that wrong with him till this day. I don't want to see that for you. If you got some things that you did wrong in your life, I want you to have the courage to reach out to the people that you did wrong to, because it's not going to get fixed if you don't do it this way. You're going to still carry it unless you learn to resolve these issues with forgiveness, self-forgiveness, and self-love. Okay? I want you to reach out to whoever you've wronged. I want you to be strong enough to apologize. This is about you. This is selfishness. This is you loving you. I want you to get that weight off you. Get that dark energy off you. Your heart is carrying that energy. Your heart is picking up that frequency. It's emitting that frequency. I want you to get that off of your soul. Ask them for forgiveness. Forgive yourself. If you have a higher power that you report to or that you honor, I want you to ask that higher power for forgiveness. And I want you to bury it and move on. I want you to make it right, bury it and move on and never look back. Only move forward towards the greater good. If it's a relationship that you want to hang on to, move on towards the greater good. Make up for that time lost from that thing that you did wrong, that you didn't have the courage to come fix. Fix it now. It's the right thing to do. Increase your forgiveness IQ. Free yourself. Unconditional forgiveness. Okay? All right, so definition of universal right. A universal moral right, definition of universal moral right. A universal moral right is an understanding of right and wrong that transcends individual cultures, religions, or languages. It's something every human feels deep within. A part of our conscious, I want to say is there a collective conscious? Do we need to look into a collective conscious video maybe? Think about it. All right, so a part of our collective conscious that doesn't need to be taught, meaning you were born with this. It's sort of like I was watching National Geographic, and it was certain instincts that I saw a cub, a bear, a baby bear, a cub was born with. One of those instincts was whenever a male came around the mother, the babies or the cubs automatically ran and hid. They were just born, but they knew instinctively to automatically go hide. As if it was wired within them, within their souls or within their minds, their conscious, to know this threat and already move on. It's saying the same thing here. That you are aware at a conscious level, we all are, of, or potentially we all can be. I believe there are people that may ignore that, but we are all aware of a universal moral right that ties us together. Okay? So let's break down what makes these rights so unique. All right? So, timelessness. So these universal moral rights, they remain relevant and true no matter the era. Imagine how core values like compassion and honesty have been respected through the centuries. They are like a shared language of humanity. Okay? Cross-cultural respect. These rights bridge cultural divides, respected by nearly every society. Again, they are all like a shared language of humanity. Innate understanding. Even children feel these rights instinctively. Think about how children naturally understand fairness. Go back to that example where I see it across all species, all races, all things. I see where there is an innate understanding for what is right, or what should be feared, or what is this. I think collectively we all have that in common, maybe through years, and again, this is something we can look into, but maybe through years of evolution, for survival, for self-preservation, for existentialism. Maybe that is a superpower humans have, collectively understanding our conscious and what is right without being taught. So I see First 48 as a show that I've watched before. And on this show, you see a lot of crimes and different things like that. And you see people in these interrogating rooms and they're being asked these questions and they pretend like they have no idea what they did wrong. We, based off this information we're learning here, if universal moral right is a real thing, we know that we all share a collective conscious of what is right and what is wrong. It's instinctively, it's built within us. So when we see people in those situations, in those interrogation rooms, denying this emotion or denying this consciousness, what can we gather from that? What how how far down the rabbit hole have they gone that they've convinced themselves something that is collectively shared amongst all humans doesn't exist in them? All right. So these rights matter deeply because they offer guidance when the world's noise, be it emotions, ego, or culture, tries to cloud our judgment. Universal moral rights aren't about achieving perfection. They're about embracing our humanity and guiding us to be the best versions of ourselves. Remember, they serve as our moral compass, reminding us of who we truly are and who we aspire to become. You know, this is what our moral rights are. I believe there can be groups of people that are oblivious to this information at a conscious level. It's just very difficult for me to believe that that is a large group of people. I believe there are people that have got lost within reality, or I can't even say that, have different views of reality that allows them to ignore universal moral rights. Well, what is the universal moral right? I believe there are people that have conditions that'll allow them to miss that, but not most of us. I think the majority is, you are wired and you feel it. All right. So let's dive into the characteristics of a universal moral right. First, these rights are timeless, meaning they transcend generations and remain relevant regardless of the era. Next, they're cross-cultural. Almost every society respects these moral rights, highlighting their universal acceptance. Thirdly, they are innate. Even without being taught, children naturally understand these rights, which speaks to their deep-rooted nature in our conscious. They are also emotionally felt. Violating these rights often leads to feelings of guilt or discomfort, underscoring their importance in maintaining our moral compass. So let's freeze there. All right. These universal rights or moral rights, violating these rights often leads to feelings of guilt or discomfort, underscoring the importance in maintaining our moral compass. I'm hearing that if you're immoral, you're having issues with your emotional intelligence, is what I'm hearing. if you're operating in immoralities, or not being moral, your mind is going through some things because you're carrying that guilt on your heart. You're confused. You should be thinking about these beautiful positive things, but you're over here still sorting and harboring your darkness. All right. Lastly, they are protective. These rights safeguard dignity and trust, essential pillars for human survival in thriving communities. Remember, these characteristics form the foundation of universal moral rights, guiding us through the complexities of life. Okay? Have to take care of each other. I love humans. Humans first. Humans matter to me. And we must start implementing these moral rights, this universal code that binds us all together almost as one collective consciousness. How do we all know one thing about life or about the collective reality that we all weren't taught at the same time? That shows the connection. That shows how powerful we really are. That also shows you that, imagine if you get the collective consciousness of, or conscious of, a million people thinking in the same direction or thinking in the same way. What type of superpower does that open up? Because this is basically telling us that we are all tied together. So when you do something wrong, you know you're doing it. And the universal moral right within you doesn't allow you to ignore it. We know you know you're doing something wrong. To all the people on the news, all of the people that are out here hurting people, we know you know you're doing something wrong. It's impossible for you not to, just about. Again, we'll leave a small group of humans that have had a collection of experiences and events that have allowed them to ignore the universal moral right that they feel within their conscious, right? We'll give them that, but not all of us. So you know you're wrong. Stop it. You're not enjoying life operating in the wrong, and you know it. You got people cheating on each other, and the other person may never find out. You know you ain't been living your best life because you operating in the dark. You operating in the wrong. You can't, happiness ain't the same when you got wrong on your heart. You put a ceiling on your happiness when you got wrong on you. When you got dark, negative energy on you. That negative energy is you doing it to yourself by your actions, by your mind and your heart, remembering your actions that were wrong and hanging on to them. Right? Resolve these things, fix these things, forgive people, ask for forgiveness, apologize. Never be too strong to apologize. The apology isn't for the person necessarily. They are beneficiaries of you loving yourself enough to not want to have that feeling of guilt on your heart. Okay? All right, so what are the universal moral rights? All right? Some things are right no matter who you are, where you're from, or what you believe. We may argue over politics, religion, or personal choices, but when it comes to the core of our humanity, there are a few moral rights or moral truths that nearly everyone on earth agrees on. All right, on earth. God said, I said earth. Again, he was a perfectionist, but I appreciated it. Again, I will improve where I can and where I choose to improve. But I hope my mistakes or imperfection in delivering this critical information to you all is never obscured by flaws in my speech or mispronouncing words. I do this on one take. I do one take on this. I go through the information once for the first time together with you. And that's how I do it. And it's sort of like recorded live almost, because it's a one take and I accept whatever flaws come with it. Okay. But again, I agree with him. Earth. All right. Truth. All right. I just had to fix that. I'm sorry, y'all. I just want y'all to know that I'm working on me and I'm getting better. All right. So, all right. So, next up, but when it comes to the core of our humanity, there are a few moral truths that nearly everyone on earth agrees on. These are called universal moral rights. They don't belong to any one country or culture. They belong to us all because they protect the dignity of every human life. We're not talking about perfection. We're talking about the bare minimum standard of being human. You don't need to be religious, educated, or spiritual to feel these truths. They live in the conscious, they whisper, you know this matters. So the real question is never, do we know what's right? It's, are we willing to choose it even when it's hard? So those operating in the wrong, ignoring these moral truths, we know you know what's right. Are you willing to choose it even when it's hard? Even when someone has harmed you? Even when someone has made you angry? Even when you're hungry? All of these things. Are you willing to choose right over wrong in all aspects? Whether you're talking to your sister, you're talking to a relative, you're talking to anybody. Can you go forward? Because if you are able to, think about this. When you feel good, all right. So now let's move on to the first moral right, universal moral right. Behaviors and values that are consistently seen as right or good across humanity, okay? Respecting life. All societies, regardless of culture or location, place immense value on human life. This is not just a human trait, we see it in nature too, where even animals avoid unnecessary unaliving instinctively. Okay? Respecting life is a behavior and value consistently viewed as right across humanity. For example, harming a child, an elder, or a peaceful civilian is condemned universally, even during times of war. Whoa. Let's read that one again. All right. Let's read that one again. Respecting life is a behavior and value consistently viewed as right across humanity. For example, harming a child or unaliving a child, an elder, or peaceful civilian is condemned universally, even during times of war. This principle is so ingrained that every major religion has its own version of the commandment, do not unalive. Or for those that don't know what unalive is, the K word, do not K, or the M word. Okay, unalive, take away, delete. All religions, every major religion has that. I wonder why is that? I wonder why when religion was being developed and all of this life was going through and people were living, someone was like, hey, we shouldn't do this thing. And it stuck. And then someone else in another area was going through life and experiences and came up with the same thing. We should not unalive things unnecessarily. Now, there were hunters and gatherers, and there were fishing and all type of stuff, right? We're talking about animals like that, but I'm talking about humans, human life. All right. Next, we'll look at another universal right that deals with respecting what belongs to others. All right. So the universal moral right. So for those of you that don't know, let's say I'm talking to the people, I'm talking to everyone, but specifically I'm talking to the people that may have not had a good upbringing, that may have not gone to church, that may not have any religious beliefs, or may not have had any moral frameworks in their life. Okay? We're talking to you specifically. These are morals. The first one we said is respecting life. These are simple. Next up, now we're talking about stealing. This principle is fundamental because property, fairness, and trust are the building blocks of peaceful coexistence. Peaceful coexistence. When you start stealing from people, you start opening the door up for some things. People work hard for what they get, and some people do not play about stealing from them. Now, these big corporations, they got loss prevention, they got insurance. You're still risking going to prison and getting something on your record, which could prevent you from furthering, your education or getting a good job or something like that, right? You could do that. Corporations, they got enough money and insurance to compensate for that. But again, you run a risk, right? But I wouldn't advise stealing. You just go to work if you can, if you're able, if you're physically able, if you're mentally sound, if you have all of the things necessary for you to go get you a job. You should do that or work for your money so that you don't have to steal from anyone, because people will seriously harm you. Seriously, I've heard stories. I grew up in Chicago, so I've seen a lot of things. And one of the main things, why, in my neighborhoods or the culture and the communities that I grew up in, there were three things that would get you harmed in those environments. And I learned this early on in the Chicago streets growing up, is that number one is not minding your own business. You must mind your own business. Okay, that's number one. Number two was gangs. All right. Those were the times that I seen people get harmed, was not minding their own business, gangs, and then last but not least, stealing, where they stole something and the person they stole from felt that, I don't know if it was about respect. I don't know what it was about. I can't get into that or to the mind of the person that did it. But what I can tell you is it just isn't worth it. It's just not worth it. Some people really value their stuff. And if you cross that line, it could potentially be the last line that you cross. Okay? So keep that in mind. All right? So, when these are violated, it leads to chaos and disrupts societal harmony. Consider this. Even young children who haven't yet grasped language are corrected when they try to take another child's toy. This demonstrates how deeply ingrained this value is. I tell my kids this all the time. Ask for what you want. Just don't take it upon yourself just to take someone else's stuff, because not everybody is going to react the same or going to react the same. Okay? This demonstrates how deeply ingrained this value is. Moreover, shoplifting is criminalized worldwide. It's not just about monetary loss. It's about breaking the trust that holds communities together. Recognizing and upholding this right is essential for maintaining peace and mutual respect in society. It's basically telling you there, people will lose it about you taking something from them. So be careful, please. Get you, If you're in a position, I know a few people that are in positions where they may have a background and they feel like, well, nobody wants to hire me because of this background. There are programs out here that can help you get a job, no matter your background. If you had some time in the past, you know, in prison or something like that, there are people that are willing to help you and have positions for you. Now, if that's not an option for you, you could get an education. That's another option. Now, and some people will say, well, education comes with debt. So I understand that, but you have to decide what's important to you. The expansion of your consciousness or your mind versus debt. We don't want to let debt stop us from getting an education, which could get us in a position or a job that could allow us to pay off the debt and then some. And last but not least, an entrepreneur. You can create your own business. You don't have to steal. There are organizations, there are a lot of resources that you can leverage before you have to steal. There are pantries. I once volunteered at a few places, well, actually a couple of times, where we were giving out like a week's worth of groceries and tissue and socks and all types of stuff. So I just want to see you safe. If you're stealing, stop. Okay? We don't want to see you go to jail, or we don't want to see worse. We don't want to see that for you. Okay? So no stealing is a moral right, a universal moral right. All right, next up, telling the truth when it matters. This is huge. Okay? First, consider how trust forms the bedrock of our relationships, communities, and justice system. Trust. We have to be able to trust each other. When lies are told, especially those that cause harm, they can lead to betrayal and even danger. Lying, again. Gotta watch what you say. All right? A universal understanding is that truth builds trust. This is why behaviors like perjury, lying in court, are illegal worldwide. It's not just a legal issue, but a moral one too. Even children instinctively understand this. They experience distress when a parent repeatedly lies, highlighting how trust is foundational from a young age. Do your best to keep your words with your child. Do your best. Do your best to keep your word with your children. They are watching, and they are developing trust issues if you are letting them down. I'm not saying you have to be perfect. I am saying that when you are not perfect, be able to admit that and apologize for that and correct that, so that that child doesn't grow up having issues trusting human beings and then gets into a relationship and can't really trust their spouse and all of this. It leads to a lot of stuff, right? So we want to make sure that as we're being asked to be told the truth, we are telling the truth. Telling the truth. So for me, I look at the truth this way. If I have to lie to you, I'm scared of you. I'm fearful of something. I'm fearful of what you may do. I'm fearful of what you may think. So I may lie and withhold my truth so that nothing happens. I don't operate in fear, though. That's the problem. So if there is a truth that I am living and exists within my perspective or reality, I have no issue with sharing that truth with you. And people from my life can tell you that, no matter the shortcoming, no matter the mistake I've made, I've always been able to stand in accountability and tell my truth. Because if I don't tell my truth and I'm lying to everybody, who will ever know me? We understand we live in we are temporal beings, meaning we have a temporary amount of time on this earth. Okay? if I'm lying to everybody, who really knows me? Who could truly say they witnessed and observed my existence? So that's why I tell the truth all of the time. So just keep that in mind. It's fear based. You're worried about what somebody's going to think. Somebody's going to leave you. Somebody's going to do this. Just living your truth. And if whatever happens, happens. But you're living in truth. You're not hiding. You're not creating skeletons for your closet. You're not having to remember lies on top of lies on top of lies. Living your truth. Okay? That is a moral right, a universal moral right. Okay. Next up, protecting the innocent and the vulnerable. All right. So this principle is deeply rooted in humanity, in human empathy, which is something that almost all of us have experience with, or it's hardwired within us. Okay. It's an instinctual reaction. Harming the helpless just feels inherently wrong to nearly everyone. All right. So we want to protect the innocent and the vulnerable. Think about that in society. You ever seen someone defend a bully? Defend a kid from a bully? We see a lot of this where protecting the innocent and the vulnerable is a universal moral right. I remember a few years back, some rapper did something to like some homeless guy, and this guy got canceled. That's how serious we are about protecting the innocent and the vulnerable. This was a very popular rapper. Did something to some homeless guy. And then I honestly haven't heard from that rapper since that happened. I have no idea what happened to that rapper. I don't know where he went. But I know that, the public, in the eye of the public opinion, he was wrong. Right? So as a society and as humans, instinctively within us, which was never taught to us, remember, a universal moral right is behaviors and values that are consistently seen as right or good across humanity. Protecting the innocent and the vulnerable is definitely one of them. Okay. One key behavior we all recognize is the importance of protecting the innocent and vulnerable. This is consistently seen across humanity, regardless of culture or upbringing. Consider the global response to child abuse or animal cruelty. These actions evoke outrage because they violate our shared moral understanding. Similarly, first responders, those brave individuals, often risk their lives for strangers. They embody this universal principle by prioritizing the protection of those who are weak or in danger. As we continue, notice how these principles interconnect, supporting the framework of trust and community that holds us all together. Next up, keeping promises and honoring commitments. Honor, courage, and commitment, right? You have to have courage to honor your commitments. All right. So first, let's consider why keeping promises is seen as universally good. When we make a promise, we create a sense of emotional safety. Breaking that promise, however, leads to pain, insecurity, and a loss of trust. This is a value shared across cultures and society. Now, we have to do better at keeping our word with each other, including me. Again, I'm not pointing a finger. I'm in the boat with everyone else. I have to do better with keeping my word with my family, with myself, and just across the board. I have to do better. And I think as I look outward at humanity, I believe we all have to do better with keeping our word to each other and being able to be trusted, being able to be depended upon. I think this is a very important thing to keep the fabric of our society together. We must be able to keep our word with each other. All right. Now, think about the impact of betrayal. Whether it's breaking a promise in a friendship or a marriage vow, the emotional damage is significant and universally felt. Finally, consider how trust is the backbone of agreements worldwide. Marriage vows, peace treaties, business contracts all hinge on the principle of honoring commitments. It's a testament to how deeply woven the concept of trust is into the fabric of human interactions. All right, so I want you to think about, how have promises shaped trust in your own relationships? How do you feel when someone doesn't keep their word with you? Do you just brush it off and say, oh well? Or do you like feel bad? Or do you lose trust for that person? Do you lose interest in that person? Okay. Next up, seeking fairness and justice. This is a real one. Now, again, we're just talking about universal moral rights. We don't know if everyone abides by them. Every country, every government, we don't know. All right, we don't know that, but we know that it's behaviors and values that are consistently seen as right or good across humanity. We know that, but we don't know if everybody is exercising fairness and justice. All right, so why is fairness considered a universal moral right? Well, humans are hardwired with a sense of justice. It's fascinating to see how even animals like monkeys react to inequality, rejecting unequal rewards. This shows fairness is deeply rooted in our nature. Now, consider how this manifests in human society. Across the globe, injustice sparks protests when people are harmed or imprisoned without cause. And think about it. Children, even as young as 3, often claim that's not fair without needing to learn it from us. These examples highlight a shared human value, the pursuit of fairness and justice. It's a testament to how innate these principles are, guiding us from a young age and shaping our collective conscious. We're together. You're in here with No Self Hate and me, because you can relate to something. We're sharing something. You see what I see. You see what needs to be addressed in itself. Each one of us have to address ourselves before we can begin to change things for the better for everyone. We're gonna fix ourselves together. Let's fix ourselves together. You and me. I'm gonna lock in on me and focus on me, and I'm gonna make sure I continue to present the information that I think would benefit us. You are welcome to suggest information in the comments on this video or any other video, so that it's just not from my perspective. I also consult with other people behind the scenes, having questions and different things like that. But let's fix ourselves together. All right. All right, so helping those in need is another universal moral right. Okay, so first, it's universal because it helps us build connections and foster community. In times of crisis, we often witness strangers coming to each other's aid, underscoring the strength of human empathy. Recently, I heard about an earthquake that caused a tsunami, and a lot of people were displaced. A lot of people lost their lives. But I see these things happening, and it's nature. What can we do about it? All we could do is try to prepare for it, and make sure that we are all aware of what's coming, and we have the opportunity to escape that situation. But I think about how humans came to each other, how we come to each other's aid. We are really almost there. We are almost there. Because even in events like, natural disasters, you see what's at the root of humanity. And that's love. It gets twisted when these groups come about. When these, oh, well, I'm from this group, or I'm from that group, or no, there's only one group. It's humans. if you are in any other group other than humans, and you are a human, please explain it to me. I'm missing something there. I only see one group. And that group helps each other. When I see the good sides of that group, oh, it's beautiful. Helping each other, digging each other out of rubble, feeding each other, carrying each other when we're injured. Like, compassion is at the root of us, right? Secondly, consider how after natural disasters, people from all over the world donate time and money. This overwhelmingly generosity, this overwhelming generosity transcends borders and speaks to a shared human value. Acts of kindness touch us deeply and go viral because they resonate with our admiration for generosity. So let's take a moment to appreciate that compassion and helping those in need are behaviors and values consistently seen as right across humanity. They remind us of our shared humanity and the importance of caring for one another. Oh, we are great. Humans are great. I mean, that side, that group that just love each other, it is a beautiful thing. We are almost there. We have to fix ourselves individually together. I believe that is the next step. I believe once we identify these traumas and get post-traumatic growth, when we work on our anger, when we learn to forgive each other, when we work on our self-hatred, when we are able to identify right from wrong collectively, universally, when we're able to tap into our conscious of what is right, when we're able to feed off that superpower telling us, hey, this thing is wrong, you shouldn't do it. I think once we get there collectively, oh, watch out. See, I always have visions of humanity being this wonderful thing where if we all got ourselves together, we could stop worrying about destroying each other. And it's just like when I went to college. When I went to college, I had a 3.94 GPA. I had a 4.0 for quite some time. And I went to college and I was stuffing so much information in my brain that it was crazy. Like I was just stuffing a lot of information. So when I left college and I graduated, I had all this extra space in my mind that this information had trained me to like gather. I had all this extra space in my brain. And that extra space, I started filling with new knowledge. I didn't necessarily need quadratic equations as much. So I moved that knowledge to the back of my mind, but that space was still available. I start filling it with other knowledge. So it is my belief that once we clear space for us to all focus on the things that we need to, I believe the cure for cancer, the solution to light speed, I believe the speed of light, I believe, whatever other things that, whatever else we want to accomplish, we will have the space and the bandwidth to do that because we're not worried about separating ourselves into groups, which you could still be in your group. But does your group have to destroy? Does your group have to operate in negativity? I mean, to each his own, I'm just asking. But does it? Is it possible for you to be in your group and have the principles and the things that you believe in and still treat each other reasonably so that we can get this off of our plate and focus on the real things we need to be focused on? It's 2025 and we still don't have flying cars. I remember being a kid thinking that by 2025, it was going to look like I almost told my age, the Jetsons. That you would just have a apartment in the sky and you would fly your flying car there or spaceship and get out and walk. Why aren't we there? Why haven't and forgive my ignorance if these questions are, strong. And again, I'm just asking because these are the things that I want to know. Like, why haven't we figured out the speed of light? I know it's easier said than done. I know it. But if we had some of this stuff off our plate, racism, self-hatred, broken systems, broken justice systems, immoral and unethical wars, and if we had some of this off our plate, and we were just to say, all right, America, or all right, world, we don't have to worry about. We figured out racism. We are all one. We are humans. We figured out self-hatred. Everyone must have no self-hate. Everyone must have mental health awareness as a part of their lives every day. We figured out that. We figured out these unethical and immoral wars. Now we want the entire world, each country, we're going to have a competition on who could come up with the next great technology. And all of these people, you want to use all of your resources at all levels to help think and come together and work on these things together and move technology forward, move our civilization forward. Next thing you know, we're learning how to grow back limbs. Next thing maybe a person that is being suppressed in a broken system is the person that creates. Do you all remember that med bed from Elysium? I don't know if you all saw Elysium, but you remember that med bed? Like, no matter what got in there, that AI and that med bed was able to resolve whatever physical ailment or issue that someone may have. Like, there are a lot of things behind this veil of consciousness that society and that we are stuck behind. On the other side of it is the greatest display of humanity you've ever seen. The most leanest, the most agile, the most smartest, the most efficient form of humanity that you've ever seen. But we must figure out this chaos that's distorting our view of our true trajectory. All right. Now, I could go on forever. I won't. I thought about this. This is something that I think about. This is part of, why No Self Hate is here, to help accelerate the evolution of human emotional intelligence so that our children, our grandchildren, our great grandchildren, and from here until whenever the next 10,000, 100,000 years, we have our best foot forward as we are developing and growing humanity. Where we're able to explore the galaxy in safe ways, where we're able to learn the laws of the universe in better ways and how they affect us outside of Earth. We're able to go to the bottom of the ocean in a device that will reverse the compression and the weight of the ocean around it in some weird field that it creates or something. Right? I'm just trying to get there. But we got to stop hating each other. We got to start doing what's right for each other. All right? So, how does the psyche play into being right? Key psychological factors in being right. Defense mechanisms. So firstly, consider how we often justify bad behavior to sidestep feelings of guilt or shame. This is a classic defense mechanism. For instance, imagine a manager who regularly yells at their team. They might claim, "I'm just being tough because I care about quality." In truth, this behavior might stem from stress, fear of failure, or insecurity. However, they rationalize it by believing it's morally right, thereby easing their conscience. This example highlights how our minds can twist rationales to align with our actions, allowing us to maintain a sense of moral correctness even when our actions might suggest otherwise. I always talk to my family members, and I always warn them before I'm going to give them an honest criticism. I say, hey, I'm about to tell you something that is an honest criticism that isn't meant to harm you, but it is meant to inform you and actually provide an opportunity for growth, because I am aware how defensive people are. I want you to try something. I want you to try an experiment. I want you to, next time you are, in passing or whatever, I want you to, or you're around your family, I want you to critique someone. I want you to do it 5 times. Five, maybe 3 or 5 people that you can critique. Give an honest critique about, but it has to be rooted in the greater good and it has to be focused on an opportunity for growth. Give a critique, and I want you to tell me how many people go to accountability first versus going to defense. This is a real thing. Okay? People are very defensive. And that's what's blocking us. That's why we always think we're right. That's one of the reasons, okay? Next key psychological factor is cognitive dissonance. I was talking about this. I've been talking about this for the past 3 weeks. This is very important, everyone, okay? We often find ourselves in situations where our actions don't quite align with our values or beliefs. This creates a mental discomfort known as cognitive dissonance. Our mind's natural response to resolve this discomfort, interestingly, instead of changing our actions to match our values, remember, your intent must match your actions, all right? Instead of changing our actions to match our values, we often adjust our beliefs to justify our actions. So if a person is smoking, and they know that smoking isn't right, they don't change the action of smoking. They change the belief of smoking so that they're able to do what they want to do. Again, we go back to what we said in the beginning. You see how your mind conditions you to get what you want, even if it's bad for you? And I used to tell my son, do you control your brain, or is your brain controlling itself? Right? Do you control your brain, or is it controlling yourself? Or is it controlling itself? Think about that. Are you in control? Can you tell your mind or tell your consciousness to stop doing something and it stops? Right? That's that cognitive dissonance. When you know what you're doing is wrong, but you done found a way to conveniently, you done found the belief that allows you to think that this thing is okay. Again, I am not perfect. I suffer from these things as well. Some of these things we've covered today. Cognitive dissonance is something that I also struggle with as well. We have to work on it. All right. So, for instance, consider someone who champions healthy eating but frequently indulges in fast food. Rather than admitting this inconsistency, they might think, well, life's short. I deserve to enjoy food. This example highlights how the psyche often resolves discomfort by altering beliefs rather than actions. Okay? Understanding cognitive dissonance helps us recognize these patterns in ourselves and others, guiding us toward more authentic alignment between our actions and values, between our actions, values, and intent. All of that. Okay? Next up, trauma responses, key psychological factors in being right. Here's why you always want to be right. Okay? So now let's explore how trauma responses can shape our perception of what's morally right. It's crucial to understand that unresolved trauma, especially from childhood, can greatly influence our moral compass. Instead of being guided by integrity, decisions might be driven by survival instincts. For example, consider someone who grew up in poverty and had to steal to survive. Even when their circumstances improve, they might continue this behavior, rationalizing it as justified because of past hardships or a belief that the world is unfair. This illustrates how deeply ingrained survival tactics can override our intellectual understanding of right and wrong. The psyche has learned to equate survival actions with moral correctness. Isn't it fascinating how our past experiences can shape our present moral reasoning? Okay? I want you to think about your trauma. Episode 2, How to Resolve Trauma. If you need help with that, Season 1, Episode 2, No Self-Hate. Check that out. All right? But think about your trauma responses. You know, when you're always right, how much of that is from childhood trauma? Unresolved childhood trauma. How much of that is from that? Well, you have to be right because maybe in your household you weren't right. Maybe in your household your little cousin was always right or your brother was always right, and people. So now you're this grown person still carrying this stuff around, and you still win these childlike battles that you used to struggle with as a child because you haven't resolved that trauma. Season 1, Episode 2, How to Resolve Trauma, has the steps in it for you to help. Okay? No self-hate. All right. Next up, moral licensing. Start with the definition like, moral licensing is the subconscious permission we give ourselves to do something bad after doing something good. Okay? Consider this example. Someone donates to charity, which is a noble act, but then cheats on their taxes. They rationalize it by thinking, I give back to my community, I deserve to keep a little extra. The key takeaway here is how the psyche balances the moral scales. The good deed offsets the guilt from the bad act in their mind. This is crucial. This is a crucial point where the mind tricks itself into feeling justified. Remember, understanding these underlying psychological factors can help us recognize and perhaps address these biases in our own lives. Okay? Moral licensing. We talked about that earlier with my child where she helped me out with something. And then she went into the pantry because she felt she had the moral license to do it. How are you using moral licenses? When you do something right or when you do something beneficial, how do you use it? All right. Next up, familiarity breeds comfort. All right. So the more we repeat an action, the more our brain starts to see it as normal, even when it isn't. This is what we call familiarity breeds comfort. Consider the example of a politician. They might begin their career with honest intentions, but over time, repeated dishonesty to gain support can lead them to believe their own lies. They might rationalize it by thinking everyone does it. That's just how politics works. The key point here is that our psyche can numb itself to internal conflict through repetition. The more we do something, the easier it becomes to justify, even when deep down we know it's wrong. The more we lie, the easier it is to lie. The more we steal, the easier it is to steal. The more we hurt each other, the easier it is to hurt each other. The more you self-hate, the easier it is for you to self-hate. You must identify these areas. You must uproot the mental processes and thinking that surround these areas. You have to. Because if you don't, the more you practice them, the more they will stay with you on your journey. And self-hatred and negativity and all these things are in the way of you achieving true happiness, peace, and fulfillment in this temporal existence where we all have an end date. End date. We all were given a start date and we all have an end date, and we don't know what that end date is. So we don't have much time to continue to walk around with all of this stuff that's obscuring our view of true happiness, true fulfillment, and true peace with our time on earth. All right. It's important to recognize these patterns in ourselves and others so we can break the cycle and make conscious, ethical choices. As we move forward, we'll explore how displaced emotions can also distort our moral compass. All right, so imagine an employee who experiences mistreatment at work. Instead of addressing the issue directly, they might go home and argue with their partner or yell at their kids. This is a true thing. This is real. This happens every day. Trauma, right? Trauma creating trauma. A traumatized manager may traumatize the people that report to them. And those people that report to them may not have the tools, and then go home and traumatize their wives, their children, their husbands, their whatever. This is a real thing. Displaced emotion. Okay? We all have to work on ourselves. All right? All right, so they might go home and argue with their partner or yell at their kids. In the moment, it feels justified. They think they should have known better. However, what's really happening is the psyche is finding a safer outlet to vent these emotions, avoiding the true problem. This mechanism allows individuals to temporarily avoid confronting difficult issues, but can lead to strained relationships with those who are not the source of the frustration. Understanding this pattern can help us recognize when we might be displacing our emotions and encourage us to address the root cause directly. So that is important. So how I use this is, let's say for instance, I had a bad day. And let's say when I get home, my kid did something that maybe they shouldn't do. They shouldn't have done. If I had a bad day, I'm not dealing with it that day. I got to find another day to deal with it. Now, justice is supposed to be swift, and I understand that. But it should also be mentally stable, okay, and merciful. All right? I will not deal with it until I know that I feel better, because I don't want to displace whatever emotions I feel from the day that I had. Because I have an outlet now, someone has given me an opportunity for me to express this frustration and anger. I just can't do it because I want to be fair. I'm human. So I may not always, say the right things. I may not always handle the pressure or the emotions. We may not always handle them the right way, and they might come out the wrong way. So the question here, where are you displacing emotions? Have you displaced emotions? Have you disciplined a child and maybe you probably were a little angry at something that they did or something else that happened to you earlier in the day? Now, we're talking about discipline. We're not talking about physical discipline. We're talking about disciplining, meaning that they may have to write 100 times that I won't do something over, or they may have to read a book, or whatever your form of disciplining is. Have you ever went excessive because you may have been dealing with something, or even in your relationship? Has something happened earlier in the day and you couldn't quite vent your frustration, but later on something else happened and you took it out there, or maybe you didn't, right? That's the gray area, right? So this mechanism allows individuals to temporarily avoid confronting difficult issues, but can lead to strained relationships with those who are not the source of the frustration. All right. Projection. This is another factor in being right. Projection is when we attribute our own flaws, insecurities, or desires onto others. It's a fascinating defense mechanism. Imagine someone tempted by infidelity accusing their partner of being unfaithful. They feel justified in their suspicion because acknowledging their own guilt is too overwhelming. By projecting, they protect their self-image, blaming someone else for what they fear to admit about themselves. That is heavy. That is heavy. That example is a real example. A person tempted by infidelity and may have done something, somehow accuses their partner of being unfaithful. They feel justified in their suspicion because acknowledging their own guilt of them being unfaithful is too overwhelming, because they would have to deliver this truth to this person. By projecting, they protect their self-image, blaming someone else for what they fear to admit about themselves. When you started the negative energy, when the negative energy existed with you, you somehow figure that the partner you've had who hasn't displayed any of these behaviors is somehow cheating. When actually that's your own conscience. That's your own guilt. That's your own cowardice. If you are in a relationship and you feel the need to go outside of that relationship, you should have the courage to either say that to that person or get yourself out that situation. Now, I know it's not that easy. Maybe children involved or something like that. Then that comes down to you and what you really want. But you should be able to live in your truth. I pray for any of us that's walking around here harboring guilt and harboring secrets that keep us in this prison. You are not free if you're guilty or you feel guilty about something. Your happiness is not as happy as it could be if you feel guilty about something. Okay? So make sure you understand that. Resolve that guilt in any situation. All right? So this mechanism shields us from facing uncomfortable truths and helps maintain our sense of self. It's crucial to understand these behaviors, not just to recognize them in others, but also to reflect on our own actions, projections. Where are you projecting in life? When was the last time you projected? When was the last time your insecurities, your issues, you projected onto someone else? Was it a debate? Was it a talk about politics? Was it a talk about society? What was that for you? And I want you to think about that. And I want you to start thinking about ways that you can minimize having to project. Work on your insecurities. Work on your flaws. Or accept them. Love thyself first. Love thyself first. Right? There's a solution for everything. We just got to be smart enough to find it. Okay? All right. So, what is right? Final reflection as we get ready to shut things down. So, let's explore what it truly means to be right. It's more than just winning an argument or holding firm to our beliefs. At its core, being right is about aligning our actions with truth, empathy, and moral integrity, even when it's challenging or unpopular. Do the right thing. Nature, the universe, whatever you believe in is going to reward you. There is something going on when you do the right thing. It comes back beautifully. Try it if you don't believe me. All right. Consider the components that shape our sense of rightness, our personal values, moral framework, and even cognitive biases. These elements can be influenced by social conditioning and our emotional justifications. Importantly, the distinction between intent and impact plays a crucial role. We might intend well, but the impact of our actions might tell a different story. This is where our conscience comes into play. Now, why do we often feel we're right, even when evidence suggests otherwise? The psyche is designed to protect the ego, not necessarily the truth. Admitting we're wrong can feel like a threat to our identity, safety, and control. So we have to be able to admit that we're wrong. We have to remove that fear. What's going to happen to us? I pray nothing happens to us, but if we're wrong and we have to admit that, it's not the end of the world. You'll probably have 1,000,000 conversations in your lifetime. That was one conversation you were wrong in. So, if you see that you're wrong, admit it. You don't always have to be right. Say Say no to say no to perfectionism. Do the best you can. Tell your truth so that while you're existing, we know who the real you were or who the real you is. Okay? Next up, let's also reflect on universal moral rights shared across cultures. Principles like do not harm and tell the truth. These instincts guide us, but our minds can still justify or distort our choices to protect us from guilt or shame. We must get rid of the guilt and shame. You see what guilt and shame does to us? You see how hard our minds work to avoid the feelings of guilt and shame? It's crazy. Like, think about that. Or it's tough. Think about that. Why is our mind automatically working this hard? Or why are we permitting it to? Okay? I want you to think about your guilt and shame. It's okay to be wrong. There's no shame in being wrong. You're imperfect. You don't have all of the knowledge. Okay? All right, so ultimately, being right isn't about the ego. It's about choosing integrity. Embracing self-awareness is the first step towards healing and personal growth. It's the foundation of a fulfilled and peaceful life. Okay? I want you all to work on this stuff. We had a long episode today. It was about righteousness, so I had to dive deep. We'll break it down. I'll put some clips out to help, process some of this information. But for those that stuck around, that made it to the end, you should be on your journey. If you're like me, life is getting better every week. Every time we go through some of this information, my happiness, my fulfillment is going further and further. I'm able to help others now. I'm able to take all of these great emotions and great positive things that we're doing here on No Self Hate, and I'm able to help others feel this same feeling. It's one of the greatest feelings I've ever felt before in my life, and I just want to share it. And I hope you're experiencing the same thing, and I hope you are helping as many people as you can. This is new information. This is almost like the secret. And if you've been around to enjoy this information, I am happy for your newfound superpower. Isn't it great? All right. So, you know how this goes, right? So as we continue on this journey together, let's take a moment to explore how we can wear our hearts on our sleeves, literally. At No Self Hate, we offer a range of mental health awareness apparel and accessories. These aren't just clothes, they're powerful statements. They serve as reminders that self-love and mental health matters. We're not just about products, we're about building a community. Our mission is to educate, uplift, and empower everyone in their personal growth and emotional evolution. From inspiring guest speakers to tools that help you plan and achieve your goals, we're with you every step of the way. I invite you to visit NOSELFHATE.com to discover more. Let's support each other on this path to a more aware and compassionate world. Thank you for being a part of this movement. Right? You all get your gear. I want you all to start posting your gear. I'm going to have something for you. I'm working on something. I would like to start something where people go through different places, different cities, and they know there are No Self Hate gear. And if they upload pictures of that, I would love to do something nice for them. So I am working on that, and that is in the process. So if you want to get a jump on that, you can. But I'm going to have something special for those that are boots on the ground, helping put this work in, helping trying to heal, and again, accelerate the evolution of human emotional intelligence. Okay? So, what's right isn't always easy, but deep down we know. We know that we have a collective conscious that when we're not taught these universal moral rights, we know. You know when you're doing something wrong. Put that gun down. Put them weapons down. Stop finding people to hate. Stop finding people to hurt. Stop finding people to steal from. Get you a job. Get you some education. Get you some heart to love yourself. Stop using others as a crutch for your failures and turn your failures into success. Educate yourself. Build yourself. Love your life. Build up life. Don't destroy life. Spread the word of righteousness and the word of right. Don't spread the word of wrong. Watch the information you're taking in. It's programming you, making you think it's okay to be wrong. It's not. Okay? Next up, we're going to have what is wrong. We're going to do a deep dive on wrong. Now, that episode is probably going to be a lot shorter, but I had to make sure that we went extra far to understand that, you know, what right is in what's our subjective right versus what is a universal right. And I think we achieved that today. All right. So if this episode made you pause, if it challenged something inside you, or if it reminded you of the voice you've been ignoring, then don't just sit with it, share it, because someone else needs this information too. Like if it resonated, comment to tell your truth, and subscribe so you don't miss the next moment of clarity. This is more than content. This is your call to grow, to reflect, and to rise above ego, to choose truth over comfort and conscience over pride. You were not born for self-hate. You were born to remember who you are. This is No Self-Hate, and this is just the beginning. Season 1. Okay? Be safe. I hope everything that you aspire for works out for you. I hope you put the effort into it. I hope you have the courage. Be well. Be safe. Be happy. Be peaceful. And until our next episode, thank you for your time.